Hello and welcome to the One Life Church devotional series. We cover the entire Bible in 20 months. Well, today's chapters are Psalm 39 and 40. In Psalm 39, two big questions are posed. The first one is, how do you deal with the things in your heart? He says it's like, I have a problem when I bottle things up. He said, I will watch my ways and I'll keep my tongue from sin. I'll try to be disciplined. I will put a muzzle on my mouth when I'm in the presence of the wicked. He says, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. But then this is what he says. So I remained utterly silent, not even saying anything to the good. But my anguish increased and my heart grew hot within me. It's like, it's like you want to close it, but there's like a volcano bubbling up inside. Here's a Coke bottle. If I shake this, my wife will drink it in a moment. If I shake this, you know what's going to happen. And basically, he's saying, how do you handle the issues of a heart? How do you just muzzle it and keep it all inside? Second big question he asks is that life is so short. What should we do with our lives? And he basically says, everyone is but a breath, even those who seem secure. I'm on a WhatsApp group with guys from my 1985 matric class. Can you believe it? So the boys are turning 55 this year. One dude puts a picture of himself on there this morning. It was his birthday. He's sitting cross-legged and quite frankly, not a bit of gray hair on his head. He looks like the day we matriculated. And I looked at him and cross-legged at 50 years old. Who does that? But then I looked at him more closely and I thought, the reality is he's also closer to the grave than he was to the cradle. And his life too is coming to an end. And so the psalmist says, surely everyone goes around like a mere phantom. In vain they rush around, heaping up wealth without knowing whose it'll finally be. In other words, when you die, it's going to go to your kids and they might squander it. They might give it to somebody else. And so he poses these big questions. Life's so short, what are you going to do with it? And there's the issues inside. Are you really just going to bottle it all up? Yeah, that's what I love about the Old Testament and the Psalms in particular. It asks questions that Jesus answers in the New Testament. Let's go to Psalm 40. Now, Psalm 40 is totally different. Some theologians think David had just been crowned as king, and so he was reflecting back on the days when he was like stuck, and God lifted him, made him king. So he says this, he lifted me up out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. He set my feet on a rock. He gave me a firm place to stand, and he put a new song in my mouth. Many will see and fear the Lord and put their trust in him. I love this about David. Although he was living in Old Testament times and the law presided over his relationship with God, he had this idea that God was a savior, that God was looking at the heart, that God was a God of love, and God was a God of mercy. And so he says this in verse 6, very insightful. He says, sacrifice and offerings you did not desire. He goes on to say, burnt offerings, sin offerings you did not require. David had this sense that sacrifices were temporary. Those Old Testament rituals, killing goats and bulls, were a very temporary measure. And how right he was. Because when the writer to the Hebrews in the New Testament was writing about Jesus, he quoted the psalm. He said, David was right. This is what he says in Hebrews 10:5. Therefore, when Christ came into the world, he said, sacrifice and offerings you did not desire, quoting exactly out of this text, but a body you prepared for me. So Jesus was given a body to live in. With burnt offerings and sin offerings, you were not pleased. Then he said, here I am. It is written about me in the scroll. I have come to do your will, my Lord. That's an exact quote of verse 7. I am come here. It is written in a scroll. I've come here to do your will, O God. Your law is in my heart. David had this idea, and he was speaking prophetically about Jesus, that bulls and goats would be done away with, and God's what he's really looking for is a heart that voluntarily gives himself to God. And then he uses this incredible phrase. He says this, but my ears you have opened. Now, it could be talking about, you've spoken sense into my head. But I think it could be in reference to Exodus 21 verse 6. Exodus 21 verse 6, if a slave had done his duty, had fulfilled and his duty to his master, and he was allowed to go free. But he said, I want to be your slave for life. He would get his master to pin his ear against a door, and they would open his ear and put a hole in his ear. And you look at him and you say, that slave loves his master so much, wants to be with his master so much, is so grateful, he's forgone his freedom, and he says, I will be a slave to the Lord. I think that's what David might be getting to. He might be saying, Lord, I know, sacrifices and bulls, people are doing that, but I've opened my ears up, and I voluntarily give you my heart. I give you my allegiance. I give you everything I am. I want to be yours forever. Verse 10 says, your faithfulness and your saving help I will speak of. I do not conceal your love and your faithfulness. David was a prophet looking into the future, saying, Jesus wants your heart. He wants your affection. And he's come to make it possible that you can have this relationship with him.